Hundreds of mine workers and their supporters have held a gathering in Marikana to mark the 4th commemoration of those who died when a labour protest turned violent in 2012. The Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union erected a stage below the koppie near Lonmin's Marikana mine. 34 people died there when police opened fire on striking miners, injuring over 100 and killing those 34 on the 16th of August 2012. The event focused on the impact of that event on the lives of mine workers and their families after they occupied that particular plane during the dispute, as well as the outstanding questions and the lack of closure. Criminal and civil proceedings are still pending on the matter. Let's get the latest now from Angelo Coppola, who's been following this story for the last couple of years. He's live in Johannesburg right now. Let's start with a big picture here, Angelo. Since the massacre in Marikana 4 years ago, have conditions, housing conditions, working conditions for miners across South Africa's mining sector, have they really changed?
Raman, the short answer is no. Nothing's really changed. Living and working conditions are still very much the same. In terms of the actual massacre that you're talking about now, 17 workers are still facing criminal charges, while there's only one police officer who's been officially charged. On the mines there, health and safety remains a key concern and a key issue. In fact, deaths and injuries on duty are higher this year compared to last year. And just 10 days ago, another miner at Amplats died in a fall of ground incident. Mining in South Africa remains a dangerous undertaking, and that's only underground. And we've said this before many times. It's also because of a reliance in the past on cheap human labor and less focus on mechanization, something that's been modified slightly, but there's still this emphasis on using human beings underground when perhaps machines would probably do a better job. Raman?
Each time we have this conversation on mining, Angelo, one of the things that often does crop up is just how unprofitable a lot of these mining companies in the sector are. Has anything changed in gold, coal and platinum?
Well, the mines have been benefiting in the recent past of a weak US dollar rand exchange rate to some extent, but this has been counterweighed by the relatively high cost of employment in the country. And that's due to, in the platinum sector, the AMCU wage settlement that has now reached its end of term. The gold sector has just adopted a relatively new wage deal, which has kind of pushed the production costs up there in terms of labor. But the bottom line is the low commodity prices are impacting on this issue here as well, which has meant that most of those mines have slashed costs in order to stay productive. Arguably, I'd say that they're more efficient, they're more cash efficient. The most recent data that we've seen is for June, and it shows that mining production continued to drop, although it's dropped less quickly. It fell 2.5% from a year earlier. So it's still the 10th consecutive month of contraction in the mining sector. So it's not good news at the moment, Raman.
Speaking of cost pressure, let's talk about AMCU and its trademark demand, 12,500 Rand a month. They describe it as a living wage. 4 years on, this is still a very big talking point for the union. But are the coal, gold and platinum mining companies in any position to actually afford that, especially in light of the factors you've mentioned, a rising cost of doing business in South Africa, rising inflation, of course, and at the same time, the earnings they can get from what they're actually pulling out of the ground has declined since 2014?
Well, it's the same question every time that the unions and mine bosses start their positioning when they're doing wage negotiations. And it's not only AMCU that's sort of sticking to that 12,500 trademark demand of theirs in the platinum sector. They did it in the gold sector. They're not as strong in the coal sector, but in the platinum sector, the other union there, the NUM, are demanding a 20% increase, which is not a small percentage increase if you consider that the current inflation rate here is around 6%. Those commodity prices remain under pressure, and the only change recently has been, of course, the local currency, which has begun strengthening due to Brexit, and then, of course, the US data sets that point to a less likelihood of an interest rate hike in the near future. So there will be pressure put on dollar profits. Can the mining houses afford wage increases? Well, it depends on the commodity prices in the next while, and it also depends on whether the mines themselves can afford a strike and a loss in production. Raman?
Indeed, it's a pretty thorny question. Thanks for the update. That's Angelo Coppola live in Johannesburg.